All right, what's going on, Ghosts and Ghouls? It's Montavious back with Entry Crypt, and today we are joined by a special guest, Uncle Creepy himself, Steve Barton. Man, what is going on?
Hey man, I don't know how special I am, but I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Oh man, you're very special to a lot of people, man. So for people who's been under a rock the past few years, just tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, as you said, my name is Steve Barton. I've been in the business about 30 years. Uh, Took about 10 years to get Dread Central going off the ground. I was editor in chief of that for about 18 years. Fuck, I'm old. And then after that, during that, I got into film production. And after that, I left, I stepped down, and I've just continued. I've been involved with a lot of really good projects, Allegoria, Terrifier 2, of course. And yeah, man, it's just been a very incredible ride all around. And I'm just, I've been blessed so many times. And it's this whole experience, all 30 years of it, all the heartache, all the everything. It's just been a very humbling experience, and you sit there and you keep throwing shit at a wall to see what sticks, and thankfully a few things have stuck here and there, and the rest is kind of history. But yeah, I'm just happy to be here with you, man. I'm always very humbled by anybody who gives a shit what I have to say.
Oh man, for sure. So let's take it back to the beginning. So what made you want to get into the industry in the first place?
I don't think I chose the industry. I kind of think the industry chose me. Um, well, actually, the horror genre chose me.
Mm.
I come from a very dysfunctional family. My pops was a raging alcoholic, and my mom was working all day. So I basically just lived and learned in front of the TV. And one thing I learned at a really young age was if you wanted to see the really cool shit on, you had to get up in the middle of the night and turn on the TV. In the 70s, because like I said, I'm old as fuck. In the 70s, we used to have these giant black and white console TVs, right? They were like the type of TV that if it breaks, you just put another TV on top of it. Fuck it, it's furniture. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And
Okay.
I was 3 years old, man. I heard my parents sleeping and snoring, and I knew that was my time to head to the living room and turn on the TV to see what kind of weirdness I could find. And one night, I turned on the TV. It was about 2 in the morning, and I saw this newscast about the dead coming back to life. And I was like, holy shit, dude, I was 3, scared the hell out of me. So, of course, I ran into my parents' bedroom. I woke them up. I'm like, I was like 3 years old, and I clearly remember saying, the dead are coming. We got to get to rescue stations. And, and they thought I was dreaming. They thought I was having a nightmare. But I'm like, no, this is real. And I grabbed my mom's hand, and I dragged her out of bed, and my dad followed along, super pissed. I mean, he hated me as it was. He super hated me that night, right?
Oh
And
man.
I dragged him into the living room, and I pointed at the TV, and what was on was George A Romero's Night of the Living Dead, you know? So I got my first spanking that night, first time my lily white Irish Italian ass felt pain. And I was laying in bed, and I realized that I was absolutely scared out of my mind, but I was totally safe. And I thought that was the coolest feeling in the world. So after that, I just kept, I was like a sponge, man. I kept looking for that feeling, for that thrill, for that rush. Same kind of thing like if somebody goes on a roller coaster. It's like controlled chaos.
Yeah.
You're trying to go to the edge, but you're totally safe, right? And that was it for me. I mean, my first job growing up in Brooklyn, I was Irish and Italian, so it's sort of like a rite of passage. But I had to work on a pizzeria, you know, and it was, I think I was like 11, and I saved up all summer long. I worked the whole summer in this pizzeria, to buy Night of the Living Dead on video cassette, and back then it was like 99 bucks, man. Yeah, they were expensive back then. And, that was the first thing I've ever bought for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, you fast forward about a decade or so, maybe decade and a half. And I was with this chick and she bought me, she knew I'm 4 years old, bro. I ain't gonna lie. You show me something with buttons and lights, I'm enthralled all evening. Okay. Jingle your keys. I'm like, yo, that's cool, right? So she bought me this roaring Jurassic Park cage. And essentially it was just a hollowed out piece of cardboard. You press a button and it goes, rah, right? But I thought that was cool as shit. She bought it for me from eBay. And the dude she got it from ended up living right down the block from me. So it didn't make any sense for him to like put it in the mail,
Yeah.
So she gave him my phone number and he called me up. He's like, hey man, can I walk this over to you? And I'm like, sure. And I go outside and I'm waiting for him. And who turns the corner but Tony Timpone from Fangoria magazine? And I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Now, Fangoria was like the be all end all for me right then, right? So to see this guy bringing me my stuff and knowing that he's my neighbor, that shit blew my mind, right? So he and I became really good friends quickly. He realized that I knew my shit when it came to horror movies. And he gave me my first job. It was unpaid, but I didn't care.
Right. Yeah.
It was working for Fangoria on the Fangoria message boards, where this was almost 25 years ago, and that's where I met the woman I'm with now, which is even funnier. So it's crazy how life comes full circle. And he gave me my first into the industry, and again, I was like a sponge and personable. So I wanted to learn everything that I could. And eventually that led to another opportunity that he had hooked me up with this other entity, which will remain nameless because if I say their name more than 3 times, they appear like Candyman and I fucking hate them. And but that's where Dread Central started. Dread Central started as like the news area of this other website. And then it became quickly apparent that the people running that particular site, well, the Emperor had no pants. He didn't even have boxers, right? So I took Dread Central and I left, and Dread Central was always mine and my then partner, John Condit's. And there were 3 of us at first, a guy named Johnny Butane, who used to run Creature Corner way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
When I left, it was funny, the entire staff they had quit. And they're like, well, what do you want to do? So we're like, well, fuck it. Let's just see what happens. So we started Dread Central on July 4th, 2006. And what a blessing, It was a long journey. At first, there's a lot of misconceptions about doing like the online thing, especially when the internet was in its infancy. Yeah, the movie studios wanted to talk to us and they wanted us to talk about their projects, but no, they weren't paying us. You know what I mean? So after like 7 years, never took a salary. 7 years. I worked in a GameStop. I would wake up at 4 a.m. I would work my ass off updating the website to like 8 a.m. I'd go to work. I'd sling fucking video games all day, come home after that, update the website again until like the middle of the night, go to bed. And I did that for 7 years. And the reason why myself and my partners didn't take a salary was because the people who were writing for us, they were like the heart and soul, so the writers had to get paid first.
Yeah.
Thankfully, after about 7 years, the studios were like, hey, you're right, man. Here's some advertising money. And it was like fucking Christmas. That time I got to quit GameStop, I was the happiest person on the planet, bro. And it took off from there. We did really well for, I'd say, about like 10 years, because I was with I was editor-in-chief for 18 years, and about 10 of those years were banging.
Mm-hmm.
And as social media gained a lot of traction, the website started, not advertising with the website. The studio stopped advertising with the websites, and instead they invested in like their own Instagram pages for like their movies and shit like that. And it was funny too. They're like, "Hey, could you talk about our Instagram page?" "Oh, you mean the thing that's putting me out of business?" "Sure." And we were faced with a choice at one point or another. Once that we went from making really good money to like sometimes like $300 a month, at its worst. So it like the bottom dropped out, and the bottom dropped out fast, and at that point we were faced with we had a decision to make. It was either close up shop or sell to a parent company. And I'm very proud of the fact that for 16 of the 18 years that I did Dread Central, I never had a parent company. It was always us. It was our voice. We did all of that on our own steam and became one of the most respected horror-related websites out there. And I'm super proud of that. And I'm super proud of the people I work with, most of which are still working in the industry today, which is awesome. And so Epic Pictures Group came along, and they wanted to use Dread Central as a way to kind of brand their horror releases.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, that sort of works. And for me, my whole vision for Dread Central was always crystal clear for me. It was always give the indie filmmaker as much of a spotlight as the studio filmmaker, and we did that. And that's where we made a lot of our success. But to be able to release movies, that was doing that, but like on another level. So I was kind of taxed with watching all this stuff, and it all sucked, bro. I ain't lying. It was terrible. I mean, I always say, just because you give somebody, dough, cheese, and sauce doesn't mean they could make you a pizza, right?
It's true. True.
So I watched all these movies, and they were all terrible. And if Dread Central is going to drop into a DVD label, that shit got to be good. It got to be correct,
Mm-hmm.
So out of nowhere, one day, Damian Leone emails me, and he's like, "Hey, man, I got this movie. I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what to do with it. Do you think maybe you could watch it and give me a quote?" And at this point, I was like, "I'm taking a break from all this shit. Yeah, I'll watch your movie." And then I watched the movie, and then I watched it again, and then I watched it again. And I called Damien back. I'm like, "What are you doing with Terrifier?" And he's like, "That's just it. We're not doing anything with it. We're a hair away from self-distribution. Everybody wants us to edit it. Everybody wants us to do this." I'm like, "No, no, no. Stop it. Promise me you're not going to do anything until I get a chance to bring this to Epic." Now, at that point, Epic was like, "We gave you 200 movies, and now you're bringing this one out of nowhere." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, it is what it is. This is the one. This is the one that Dread Central should lead with. And honestly, they did not like the movie. The guy who was in charge at that point, who's no longer with the company, fucking hated it. And his way of thinking was, oh, the world already has a killer clown movie, because Pennywise and It was blowing up.
Yeah.
And so they didn't think there was room for another killer clown. And I'm like, "No, you have to understand, this is what it is. This is the right time for this. You got to listen to me." So I think at the end of the day, they acquired it to shut me the fuck up, which is all right, fine, means to an end, right? But they didn't like it, and they didn't want to go guns blazing with the release. They wanted to release it very quietly. They played it in like 2 theaters, in one showing, like in like 2 cities. It was a horrible release.
Yeah.
But it got so bad with them that at one point I said to him, "Listen, if this movie doesn't hit, if this movie doesn't do exactly what I think it's going to do, I will step down. You can have my half of the company. I will go away. I put everything I had, 18 years of an investment in my life and career, on the line to get that movie released because I believed in it. And I don't know what it was beyond my gut reaction. You know, I always listen to my gut. My gut told me this is what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I think they took me up on it. And they're like, okay, if this fails, bye-bye. Because I didn't really get along with the main guy at Epic, who, again, is no longer with the company.
Mm-hmm.
And then they released it and it fucking blew up. And then I quit anyway because fuck them, right?
Yeah.
But that was scary, man. I mean, that was scary too, because like all of a sudden, I mean, being Uncle Creepy was the only thing I'm good at, you know? And now I had no Dread Central, a company I built just so I felt like I could belong somewhere and give other people who felt like they didn't belong anywhere a place to stay. And now my shit was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm used to that because I've been on square one 100 times. It's all good, you know, whatever. You just keep moving, you keep climbing, you keep doing what you do. You don't let yourself get discouraged, even though that's real easy. And, you know, the possibility of Terrifier 2 started rolling around. And I said to Damien, I'm like, dude, I have to be involved. And not because it's the only thing I had, which was really true at that moment, but because this series, this franchise has become ingrained on me. You know, it's as much of a part of my story as I am a part of its story.
Yeah.
You know? And I came aboard as a producer, and you know, but again, I was in California, you know, I wasn't on set. So it's like 9 people made that movie and they were on set every day and they busted their ass. It was Jason Levy, Michael Levy, of course, George, Scott, Steve DeSala, Phil Falcone, Olga Turka, Faye. All these people were there every day busting their ass to make the best movie that they could possibly make. And I always had confidence that Terrifier 2 was going to be good because I believe in it.
For sure. And not to cut you off there, you know, I definitely wanted to get into Terrifier, but I definitely wanted to talk to you about your mentors. I know that, you know, you kind of told me, or everybody should know, you know, who follows you, that, you know, you had 2 great mentors, you know, George A. Romero, godfather of zombies. I mean, I remember, I don't know, are you in the games? Are you in the games at all?
Of course, dude. You're talking about the Call of Duty Romero game? I had it.
Yes. I mean, I remember, okay, so I'm a little young. 27, but I remember when that game first came out, I believe I was maybe a 9th grader or a 10th grader, or hell, maybe in middle school. I can't remember. But I remember playing zombies, and you had George A. Romero come out of the fucking frozen lake with, like, you know, it was the light, and he's chasing. I could never kill him for whatever reason. Dude, man, he is. But yeah, could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with?
So I told you all that shit about me and Night of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And Dread Central, one of the biggest gifts in my life. I ain't gonna lie, and I will never say a bad word about it. I'm very happy with what we accomplished, with the team we accomplished. I don't know what they're doing now. I don't pay attention. I hope they're doing good. You know, they're still around, so I'm guessing they are.
Mm.
So one of the greatest things I was able to do in Dread Central is I got to meet all of my heroes. You know, I met fucking Rob Zombie. I worked with Rob Zombie. I met Clive Barker. I met Angus Scrim. I met all these fucking people that were like, they were like my fucking my gods in a lot of ways, right? And 2 of the best people I have met were Sid Haig and George Romero. Sid, I don't know what it was. Sid and I, the minute, you know, when you meet somebody and it just clicks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was me and Sid. Sid and I rolled deep, and he, you know, he was in his late 60s, early 70s when I first met him, and so here's a guy who's literally done and seen it all. And he's my friend. And I hang out with him and we talk, and that's holy shit. And then one morning, I'll never forget it. It was at a convention called Horrified, which was out in Maryland. And I was there and I was going to meet and interview George for the first time. And his manager, Chris Rowe, who's still a very good friend of mine, he was one of those people that he and I just had an instant rapport. And so it's like 7:30 in the morning and I'm walking to George Romero's hotel room to interview him. Brother, I don't think I've ever been more nervous, And Chris comes over and he's like, hey, Steve, George is over at breakfast. He's doing a quick interview and then he'll be back in his room in about 10, 15 minutes. Here's his hotel room key. Just go wait. And I'm like, what? It's bro, I'm sitting there with George Romero's hotel room key. I'm calling everyone I know. You know what I mean? I'm like, yo, do you know what's in my hand? Right? And phones didn't have like cameras on them back then. So I would have filmed this whole shit if they did.
Yeah.
I let myself in his room. I'm calling people, dude, you know where I am? Right? I'm walking around the hotel room, sitting my ass in every chair, just so my ass could touch the seat of greatness that his ass did. Right? I went into his bedroom. I'm hugging his pillow.
Oh, yes, for sure.
I'm like, this motherfucker, I'm getting the most out of this I could possibly get, because when am I ever having this opportunity again? I went to the bathroom. I did the hero pee, when you just take your dick out and you put your hands on your hips and you just let it go. You know what I mean? Right? But I got good aim, so I made sure it was correct, right? So I sit down and I was so unprepared, and all of a sudden I hear the doorknob shifting and I look up and I don't know if you know this, but George was like 6'7". He was a fucking giant. Okay.
Oh, I did not know that.
Okay. George was tall. And here this giant of a man walks in this room and he looks at me just sitting there slack jawed, right? He goes, hey man, I'm George. Let's bullshit. And that was it. And we became really, really good friends. And I told him, I'm like, motherfucker, you got me my first spanking. He's like, I'm sorry, man. That's how George talked. He was like an old hippie.
Yeah.
Right? I told him about, working the whole summer, and he goes in his pocket to give me $100 for the video cassette. I'm like, George, I'm not taking your money. Are you kidding me? And it was, dude, they both became my mentors. When you have people like George Romero and Sid Haig as your friends who you could just call and talk to and run shit by, that's like fucking Bigfoot deeming you cool enough to know he exists, right?
Yes.
So, they taught me so much. They taught me how to treat people. They taught me how to expect to be treated, how to stand up for myself in industry. And they taught me to always do what's right. And they taught me to, no matter what, to treat everyone I come across until they treat me differently, like they're important. And they are important, because you never know when you're going to have a chance to talk to somebody again. You know what I mean? So that moment you shared, this moment we're sharing, this is great. This is the best moment in the world right now, because we're sharing this. So they really ingrained that on me, to just love every second. They taught me when to shut the fuck up. They taught me when to listen. They taught me when to make noise. And if it wasn't for their constant guidance and their constant advice, because I was an idiot, I wouldn't be anywhere near as successful as I've been. And I owe it to them. When Terrifier came out and Terrifier 2, and they just put Terrifier back in theaters, I bought them movie tickets in the front row each night.
Yeah.
And they're my man, and I wish that they were still here, because I'm curious what they would think, you know?
Oh yeah, they're definitely proud of you, man. Like, just the moment that you guys shared, man. That is, first of all, that's one in a million. I don't know how many other people in the world can say that they had mentors that were this close and personal to them. So, like, what do you think, Sid and George? Why was the world captivated by these two men?
Because they had no idea what type of legends they actually were. They never treated anyone any differently than they expected to be treated. They weren't, in their eyes, they were just Sid and George. You know, they never bought into the whole fact that they're masters of the genre or masters of horror or iconic this or that. They never bought into that shit. When we were together, we were doing stupid shit like riding Spider-Man the ride and fucking Universal and fucking going to this Ethiopian restaurant and getting this thing called a Shark Tale. We just did nonsense, got drunk, got high, got hammered, and just enjoyed each other, man. And they were real. They were real, real, real. And I guess they say real recognizes real,
Yes, sir.
So they saw in me what I saw in them. And I was lucky enough for these two older cats to just embrace me. And I think it's because I made them laugh because I am a fucking idiot, and I made them laugh, so they like to have me around. Like when we were on the road together, there was like a golden age of conventions, man, where it was like we were all this weird road family. It was like Carnival, that show on HBO, and it was me, Sid, George, Bill, fucking Doug Bradley, Adrian Barbeau. We were at like every show together, and we became like a family. So like when George was sitting there doing his signings, and George and Sid, that's one thing I will say about them. I've seen very few people do. It never mattered how long their fucking line was. They made sure everybody got an autograph, and everybody, not just it was like a quick thing and move on. Everybody was greeted. Everybody was spoken to. Everybody was taken care of. They made whoever was at their table feel like the most special person in the room. And I always admired that. And that's why when they were doing their thing, I would make sure they were taken care of, whether filling up a flask here or there, or getting some cookies, or getting some M&Ms, and sliding them across the table. I was there for that. You know what I mean? So it would just, again, bro, I take what they gave me so seriously, because they gave me so much knowledge and insight, and to be able to apply it, and to keep helping younger filmmakers. Like, I got to tell you, I think Damien, he is there's a lot in Damien that reminds me of George, a lot. Damien does not compromise. Damien makes his movies. That's what George did, and just whenever I get a chance, dude, the problem with getting older, and I think that's another reason why they and I got along so famously, was like because I'm learning it now. As you get older, you get all this wisdom that you can't even give away. You know what I mean? It's like nobody wants it because everybody thinks that they know everything in the world about everything, and it's not like that, And when I was with them, I was like a motherfucking sponge. I'm like, you tell me some shit, I'm listening. You know what I mean? And to be able to still share what they told me and taught me to other filmmakers is like the biggest gift I have. So I take that very seriously. I'm so proud of everyone on Terrifier and Terrifier 2 and everyone I've worked with. It's just, I'm one of the few people, and I'm very proud of this. I made it in California for 20 years. Never lied to anybody. I never stabbed anyone in the back. I didn't tell people what they wanted to hear. I told people what they needed to hear.
Yeah.
And as long as people may not have liked what I had to say sometimes, but they respected it, because they knew at least I was being honest with them. So very few people, knock wood, in the industry, especially out in California, have a bad thing to say about me. But it doesn't matter how good you are, dude. You're the supervillain of somebody's story somewhere,
That is true.
And
That is.
just try to let that shit go and not let it affect you and just keep moving.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, and just jumping into Terrifier. I mean, and like, again, I don't want to keep you too long, man, but like you have a great energy about you, man. I can talk to you forever.
I am here for as long as you. I cleared my whole evening, so whatever you want to do, I'm good.
For sure. No, I appreciate you. So, what do you think made Terrifier what it is? I mean, obviously, great writing, you got great people working on it, but like, why was the world why is the world drawn to this movie? I mean, Terrifier, the original Terrifier, not the short story, the feature film. Why was it such? Because that had gained a cult following. I remember when it was released. I think it was 2016. I was in college then still, and I remember just me and some buddies hanging out in the dorm, and we turned it on, just bullshitting, right? And we're just like, oh yeah, and then it got good, and then we saw the hacksaw scene and all this, and this was way before I started wanting to live like this, right? And it was crazy because I can remember the first time watching it. So where were you the first time where you actually saw the movie?
I was in my house on San Diego, sitting on my couch, Again, I was sitting there going through. I never watched Terrifier with the thought that I was going to be the one distributing it.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it as a fan of horror because horror fans, you can't fool us. We recognize bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched Terrifier, immediately several things jumped out at me. Number one, everyone was trying to make an '80s movie at this time. And Damien ended up making the best fucking '80s movie ever without trying to make an '80s movie, So it had that aesthetic to it. It was violent as fuck. All of the kills were practical. And there were so many things in it, especially the hacksaw scene. So many rules that it broke, like when Art took out his fucking gun and shot her. You know what I mean? You never seen
before, yeah.
Before, right? So to me, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And then you have David Howard Thornton, who's delivering this fucking performance without saying a word that's both chilling and hilarious and horrifying all at once. And I'm like, this character is fucking golden. And then you had Damien's very wise decision to keep his makeup very simple, to make it almost like the anti-Pennywise. There's no colors, it's just black and white.
Yeah.
So, and I think the simplicity of that design is actually what makes it so damn memorable. So I hadn't seen anything even close to that, anything that made me go, ooh, holy shit. Like that hacksaw scene, I remember before it started happening, I was like, it would be really cool. Get what they're doing if they actually did this, but there's absolutely no fucking way they're going to do this. And the next thing I know, the camera's between the chick's ass cheeks getting sawed in half. And I'm like, holy shit, he's doing it. You know what I mean? So I think it gave me that. I mean, this is how I kind of knew this was what it was. This was it. Because I remember when I was a little kid, when I would go to the schoolyard, I came up, in Brooklyn, New York. So me and all my friends, we met at the schoolyard and hung out. And we bullshitted endlessly about fucked up movies or things we did.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a certain time when we were talking about these movies that were forbidden fruit, oh, did you see this movie where that chick got the, and it was just, and this is what that movie reminded me of. Right? I'm like, this is the forbidden fruit. This is a fucking apple that fell off a tree that originally grew 20 years ago, you know? And I'm like, this is it. So I knew that it was going to be popular. I knew it was going to find its audience. It just needed a chance. It needed somebody who stuck to their guns and just said, fuck it, this is what it is. This needs to be out there. And that's what I did. And it was the best decision of my life. Terrifier is very much my swan song from Dread Central. And you know what? After 18 years doing that, to go out with Terrifier, totally okay with that decision.
Oh,
You know,
for sure.
I hope.
Now, I have to say, because I've seen Damien a bunch of times. I haven't really talked to him about, because I really don't try to bother him. You know, I let him do his thing and all that good stuff. But is there a comparison? Because I am a fan of, you know, his screenplay and his style. So, you know, Frankenstein versus the Mummy, I know we kind of talked about it briefly. Is there a correlation between the Mummy, no, the Frankenstein and Art the Clown? Because they look kind of similar to me.
I think Damien has a specific style, being that he's also an artist.
Mhm.
Everybody has like their signature look. So while they're not in the same family per se, the style is still dead on. Like if I were to say to myself, if Damien Leone was going to make a Frankenstein monster and a mummy, what would it look like? It would look like fucking that. You know what I mean? And it's just he has this very clear picture of what he wants. Damien is a confident filmmaker.
Mhm.
He has balls for days. He knows what he wants. He does it, and the fact that he's the one that's creating these things, you know. So it's just I don't think there's any correlation other than it's just a signature look that he has created. His creation's very angular, very
Okay.
pointed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those particular that you know what that movie doesn't get enough love. That movie was violent as fuck. You
It
know,
was great. That's what I'm like. You know, everybody. You know, I love Terrifier, big fan. But like, you know, everybody's talking about Terrifier or The Ninth Circle, all those great movies or great shorts. But that Frankenstein versus the Mummy,
it was
for
cool.
me, that's up there. And I don't know why it don't get as much love. I feel like it should.
Even
But
Damien will tell you that he wishes there was more to the actual fight, you know, between the two monsters. But
uh-huh.
I mean, everything that went on before that, I had a ball with. And plus, it's kind of funny seeing, you know, a young Italian from New York, Dr. Frankenstein, who kind of talks like I did. And you know what I mean? It's an interesting movie. If that doesn't show you this guy had talent, I don't know what would have, you know? And I don't think anybody, none of us in our wildest dreams could have expected Terrifier 2 to do what it did. You know, I mean, it broke every conceivable rule.
Yeah, which, you know, just to kind of talk to you about just a little bit, I think it's a blessing and a curse. I think it's amazing for everybody involved, even like, you know, independent filmmakers that, you know, want to produce something. But also, I feel like it's a curse, and not for like you guys, but like, you know, I feel like now, you know, everybody wants to try to replicate, you know, Terrifier, and that's fine. It's okay to adore something and want to be successful like it, but you have people literally that are like, you know, make it, they're trying to make all these movies to get them, put them in theaters, and it's like the quality isn't gonna be there. I mean, because you got Damon, you got yourself, you got people who really care, and not saying that those other guys don't, but you know, it's a different level. And
I think I think it's a lot to do with we caught everybody off guard,
yeah,
especially the studios, especially the theaters, especially ourselves. You know, that's one of the things I think everybody who's associated with Terrifier 2 is most proud of, the fact that if there was any movie that did this and opened the door like this one did, we would have been just as happy. But what Terrifier did was it incentivizes theater chains to show indie movies. And this was,
yeah,
I mean, this is Terrifier 2 hit at a time when the movie scene in general was just so fucking homogenized. You know, it was, you're getting all these, even the superhero movies were preachy, you know? It's like you're getting hammered over your head with a constant message or this or that. And let's face it, man, we had arguably the worst several years of our lives before Terrifier 2 came into theaters. So a lot of loss of life, a lot of tragedy,
mm-hmm.
a lot of, I mean, we were all quarantined, we were all locked up for better or for worse. Some of those motherfuckers needed to be locked up, but that's a whole different story. But at that time when Terrifier dropped, it was just when like normalcy was getting back to normal, you know? And I think that because everybody was just so being exhausted with all of this bad shit that we experienced, and Terrifier comes and it goes into movies, and its only message is to take the ride. You know, it's like the lights go out in the theater. You know, it's like the safety bar coming down on the roller coaster. And it is what it is. Enjoy it, have fun. And people lost their fucking mind. And I think that's amazing. And, you know, we were on that ride with the fans. We didn't know it was getting held over until Monday, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when it came out that first weekend and it cracked $1 million, we were overjoyed. You know, we did not know it was going to keep going. We had
Yeah.
no idea. And it kept going for over a month, you know? And it was in there with these big heavyweight movies showing in less theaters and making more money than they were. And it was just, it's all because of the fans. The fans showed up. If not for the fans, we do not exist. It's everybody, yourself included, has made our lives exponentially better. So we're really grateful to the fan base.
See, and it's crazy too, you know, when you do mention the fan base, like you guys really, you know, took over. I mean, I'm gonna call it what it is. You guys took over the horror genre. Like right now, Art the Clown, Terrifier is running the shit. Like, I mean, I give kudos to all those, you know, all the 80 legends and all that stuff. Icons for sure. But I mean, what you guys did is very unprecedented in this day and time, you know? So like, what does that mean for you to have like, have this, like this is yours, man?
It's humbling. The whole experience, it's a shared experience. Again, it was those 9 people that were on the set every day, busting their ass, killing themselves, that made that movie as good as it is. I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. All I could do is be happy to be counted among them. And, you know, I gave advice where it needed to give, and I ultimately helped during 0 hour secure distribution for them. And it's the most humbling, it's the biggest gift of my life, is to be involved in that, in something like that. And I think that it was lightning in a bottle, man. I don't think it's ever going to happen again. You know, I know 3, when it comes out, it'll be popular, but we're not sitting there thinking that shit's ever going to blow up like it did for Terrifier 2. We hope. But I think a lot of people, especially filmmakers or studios, they get it wrong. And how you get it wrong is very simple. Like every studio and a lot of young indie filmmakers over the years, I've worked with fucking everybody. You name it. I've Scott Derrickson, Rob Zombie. I've worked or know or have met James Gunn, whomever. I've worked with them and we've crossed paths. Okay. And a lot of times, and especially the studios, they're like, Steve, we got the next big thing. We have the next midnight movie. We have the next horror icon. And I would always listen to that and be like, okay, you know, but I don't think what they realized was the fact that you can't go into something and say, I have the next horror icon, or I have the next midnight movie, or the next big thing. That's not up to you. That's up to the fans to do that. The fans make that decision, not you. You could be pie in the sky hoping all damn night. You could stomp your feet, light a match, roll a handful of chicken bones, do a voodoo curse. It ain't gonna matter. If the fans don't like what you have, then the fans aren't gonna like it, and your movie's gonna go nowhere. Or maybe it'll get a little notice and then fall off. And sadly, that happens. But nobody the entire time during the production of both of these movies was thinking that way. Everybody just wanted to make the best movie that they could. And as a filmmaker, that's your job, to make the best movie that you can and put it out there and let people decide for themselves. And you cats were loud. You decided. You'll never hear us call art a horror icon that's for you to say, you know? And do I think he is? As a fan, I think he's well on his way.
For sure.
I don't think he's there yet, but I think that he's well on his way. But the fact that so many people will call him a horror icon, or like yourself, say that Terrifier is running shit, how that makes me feel like $1,000,000. And it also makes me feel humble that we did something right and we made the right decisions. Helping Terrifier get released to sort of kick off this insanity was the best decision I've ever made in my life.
Oh yeah, man, and it's definitely, and I hope you guys are reaping the benefits, man. Of this is, I'm pretty sure it's been an amazing journey for all you guys. But you know, speaking of horror icons, what do you consider an horror icon?
I think there's a certain criteria. One of the this might get me in trouble. People throw around words like horror icon and scream queen. You know what I mean? And again, you got to work for that shit. You got to work to get that title. Elvira is a scream queen. You know,
Yes.
not many people 20 something years old making a horror movie qualify as a scream queen. I'm sorry. You're an actor and you're working your way to get to a certain status.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same is applicable for what would be a horror icon. It has to be something that is able to connect with the audience. It has to be something that's easily recognizable. And you want to talk about a fucking Herculean task. Let's talk about David Howard Thornton. Okay. Everybody talks. I've heard so many people say, oh, he's got the greatest job in the world. He don't have to learn any lines. Bullshit. Okay. That cat is taxed with communicating without saying a damn word. It's all in his eyes. It's all in his face. It's all in his mannerisms. And you have to be an actor to be able to do that. He's acting with his entire body. And Damien and David have a very special relationship. They understand each other. It's like they have this weird language. So Damien knows how to get Dave to do certain things or tell Dave to do, you know, it this way. And then Dave will come up and say, okay, I have an idea. Can I do this? Like the fucking sunflower glasses of all things to explode. You know what? And that was just that was completely improvised, you know? It just goes to show you you just can't predict, man. It's like you never know what somebody is going to grasp onto. When the sunflower glasses craze started, everybody was like, what the fuck? This cat was showing up on album covers. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was just everywhere. And it was just it was so organic and so amazing. And I think that one of the things that really helped is I've been on the front lines with the fans my entire career, you know? So when it came time for promotion of Terrifier, I was all over that shit, you know? And so was David, and so was Damien, and so was everybody involved. And I think out of every film crew that's ever made a movie, we are probably the single most communicative with the fan base that there's ever been.
Yes.
We love the fans. We're always talking to them. We're always answering tweets or whatever. Dude, I've stayed up hours in the middle of the night making sure that everybody got answered. You know, so did Damien, so did Phil, so did Mike, so did Jason. I mean, anyone who was involved in that push. And then, you know, you see things on TV like Jerry O'Connell going, the marketing team behind this movie is doing such a marketing team. Motherfucker, it's us. We have a marketing team. You know what I mean? We didn't have any of that. People throwing up in theaters. Oh, that's a marketing play. We didn't even think of that. We're not smart enough to think of that. You know, that shit just started happening. And we found out about that at the same exact time as everyone else. So it was a wonderful fucking, again, just a thrill ride of an experience that we all are so lucky to be on, and it's all because people gave a shit. And again, real recognizes real.
Oh,
There's no horror fan in the world that could look at those movies, whether you like Terrifier and Terrifier 2 or not. There's no horror fan in the world that could look at those movies and say to themselves, the people who made this aren't horror fans. No, you cannot say that,
that's
okay?
true.
It's in every frame, the love and reverence we have for the genre. So, and I think that resonated with people. People knew we weren't faking it, and we were giving them what they wanted. We were giving them more than what they wanted. We were putting salt in the scalp, okay? We were doing shit. And it was wonderful, man. And I like to think that everybody involved in these movies brings their own unique skill set
Yeah.
to the table. And we're in a lot of ways, and there's no way to say this without sounding douchey. We're in a lot of ways a dream team. You know, you got Damien, who's so on point. You have Phil, who's so on point. If Phil built a Sherman tank in his backyard, I wouldn't be surprised. Of course he did. Of
For
course,
sure.
you know. So everybody brought their own skill set. George Stuber, dude, those movies look so damn good, and it's George. George is one of the most talented DPs I know, and to think that we're just at the beginning of his career and Damien's at the beginning, all of them are all at the beginning of their career. Horror is looking good, bro. We're going to be eating good for a long time, you
Yes,
know?
sir.
So it's amazing. And to just be a part of that, it's been a dream.
For sure. So, I mean, just a couple more questions for you. So, what does horror mean to you? Like, what does it embody for you?
It's in me, man. That's the difference between horror fans and fans of something else. Horror fans, there's a lot against us. We're number one, we're the most maligned group of people. People think we're all maniacs, we're into death. But it's not. Horror fans are in all shapes and sizes. They're white, black, red, fucking green, straight, Republican, Democrat. It doesn't fucking matter what you are. There's something in this genre for you. There's only two types of people. There are assholes and those who aren't assholes. It doesn't. Nothing else matters. So I think that because us fans take this shit so personally, like we get the tattoos, we get what we need to do. We represent, it's in our blood. We'll bleed for this shit. I don't see many Star Trek tattoos on people, but I sure as fuck have seen a lot of Pinhead. You know what I mean?
That's
So
true.
it's a very personal genre for fans, and I think the main reason why it's so personal is because horror is one of the only genres that's based upon a human emotion. You feel horror. You know what I mean? It's a human emotion that people have been having since the dawn of time. So I think in a lot of ways, horror is the realest of the real. We spend a lot more, unfortunately, we spend a lot more of our time horrified by shit than we are laughing at shit.
That is
That's
true.
because the world is a fucked up place and it's filled with some fucked up people. And you know what? At least at the end of the day, in our world, in our movies, the bad guys end up vanquished at the end. Sure, someone might give birth to a head at the end, but the bad guys get their comeuppance. And I wish that a lot of the real bad guys in the world would get their comeuppance. So
Oh, yeah.
for me, horror it's who I am. There was one of the biggest rifts I had with my ex, who I was with for 20 years, right? She would always say to me, "What's your plan B?" And I'm like, "Baby, there ain't no plan B. This is it." And she didn't like that. And she had every reason in the world to be mad about that. And I don't say she's wrong. But when you're in this industry, you're either going to do it or you're not. If you have a plan B, you should not be doing this. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And that's really the main thing. Horror is personal. it embodies who we are. We live it, we love it, we share it. We get together at conventions and hang out with complete strangers and have the best time of our lives because we know that if motherfucker somebody walks up to you in a Reanimated t-shirt, you know that person is cool.
Yeah. Period.
So automatically the guard is dropped and you're just ready to have fun. And that's the best part about this, man. It's like it's a true community that's free of a lot of the bullshit that is permeating every other community.
Yeah, no, I mean, this whole journey, because I didn't even know horror conventions was a thing, man. I think I went to my first Comic-Con convention back in Atlanta. What year was that? That was 2013 or 14, where I was really big into The Walking Dead. And I met Michael Rooker, Norman Reedus. And I didn't know that these things even existed until, I went there, did that. And I was like, okay, that was cool. But that's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. No, these things are every year, every month. And I'm just now getting to live the lifestyle or the life that I always wanted to do because, being a Black guy from Georgia, you like horror. My dad's is in the church. It's a little weird. It's like, you worship Satan's kind of. And so I had to hide a lot of that.
Man, like I said, we're just maligned for no reason.
Yeah. So, man, no, that's awesome. So just one last question for you. What can the fans expect next? I know, you got Terrifier 3 on the way, but we won't get too much in that. But, what's next for you?
I've got several projects in various stages of production that I'm very proud of, one of which I wrote. And so it's really mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited to be able to get that stuff. I mean, that's the thing. When, like I said, when I left Dread Central, I thought my shit was over, but sometimes it takes you to just get knocked out again to realize that you can get back up and there's something else waiting. And thankfully the door opened and I stepped through. And now a lot of people that wouldn't even answer my phone calls, I got like a email inbox stacked. But you know what? I got a long memory.
That is true. I hear that, man. Sure.
So right now, I have a bunch of projects I'm really excited about. I'm just waiting for Hollywood to come to their senses and settle these strikes that are going on so we can really get to work. And you guys ain't seen the last of me. You ain't seen nothing yet. There's all sorts of good shit on the horizon, and I'm happy and thankful that because of all of you, I get to do what I love. And it's the most greatest gift anyone's ever. It's like every day I wake up, it's Christmas.
That's beautiful, man. That's awesome, for sure. A spooky Christmas, but it's Christmas, for sure.
I got skulls on my tree. I got the Terrifier fucking Art the Clown, Art Crispy's ornament hanging right on my china cabinet already, Yeah.
No, that's awesome. No, Steve, man, it has been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you so much taking time and, just chatting. Because like you said, like you guys are really, approachable and friendly and humble. So it makes it conversation very easy with you guys. So I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your time.
You too. And shout out to your mom.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll definitely let her know. I'll call her after we wrap up here and then let her know that you said hello.
Sending all the love, baby.
For sure, man. No, I appreciate that. So where can we find you on social media if we're not already following you?
I'm fucking everywhere, bro. I'm on Twitter at Uncle Creepy, on Facebook. I had to open up a fan page, which made me feel so dirty, because like I have fans. This is disgusting. But I reached a friends limit and people kept hitting me up and I feel terrible that I can't accept their requests. So on Facebook, if you look up Steve Uncle Creepy Barton, I do check that page. I'm on Threads at Uncle Creepy SB. I'm on Instagram at Uncle Creepy SB. I'm on Cameo. I'm on fucking everything. So look for me. I'm there. I'm not hard to find.
For sure. So do you mind just sticking around for like 2 minutes? My kids want to say hello, if you don't mind.
Love that.
For sure, man. I appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and end our chat and then just stick around.
Gotcha.